And we've got our next panel up to understand the vital role allies play in fostering inclusive environments by advocating for underrepresented groups within various professional settings. So we've got a gifted panel of speakers, and I'll call them up one by one. Mr. Vignesh Kumar, Director, AI ML-based digital transformation, commerce platform at Cisco, a seasoned technology leader with over 20 years of experience in artificial intelligence, machine learning, analytics, etc. Mr. Vikas Sagar, co-founder Kalido, a successful entrepreneur with 2 decades of management consulting experience, including as senior partner at a leading global consultancy. Arpan Panikar, founder and learning systems architect at Instructionalize, a company designed to find the perfect balance between AI and human resources when tackling learning design. We've also got Shalini Nataraj, the global head of HR delivery and employee experience at AP Moller Maersk. Prior to Maersk, she has vast experience enabling business and people function in Accenture and Target. And to steer the dialogue, we have Nirmala Menon, founder and CEO, Interweave Consulting. She has immense experience in diverse functions across HR in public and private sectors, both in India and the United States. So it's over to allyship, importance of being an ally.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, and welcome to this really important conversation on allyship. Today, we'll explore with this panel what it means to be an ally, why it matters, and how each of us can contribute to create a more inclusive and equitable workplace. Considering the way our workplaces are evolving, allyship becomes a very, very critical skill or behavior that we need to have in terms of breaking barriers, fostering trust, and enabling people to be the best they can be at work. And to do all of this, I'm here with the incredible set of speakers who will bring their diverse perspectives and experiences, tell us their stories, share their challenges, and give us some actionable strategies that we can use to become better allies. Having said that, I must also say that Vikas has a flight to catch. So you see that he's come in with a big bag, which he'll probably run out in between, possibly. But we'll try and keep him as much as we can. So my first question is to Vikas. Because we hear these terms, allyship, mentorship, sponsorship, various things like that, what exactly is allyship? Do these all kind of converge, or what is allyship? How would you define it?
Sure. Hello, everyone, and great to be here. It's actually interesting how panels work, because when we were preparing, I actually asked that question, and now the question has been asked back
That
to
is
me.
right.
So
That's what happens. You say something has to be sorted in an organization, they say, why don't you do it?
So I'm actually going to build on something that I heard on one of the panels yesterday by Namita Kuti, where there was a panel on sponsorship and mentorship and coaching. And she said, a mentor is like a lighthouse, a coach is like a compass, a sponsor is like a bridge. And so just to kind of build on that, an ally is like a bridge builder, just to take the metaphor of the journey forward. And an ally is creating pathways that didn't exist before, connecting divides, enabling progress for those on the journey, and doing this very much in the background as a safety net to support when things are perhaps a bit risky, being a champion when one is needed, but not one that is in the front, but much more in the back, to ensure that whatever journey is being supported, whatever voice is being amplified, that voice, those people have an opportunity to truly shine and be at the forefront, while ensuring that all the support that they need is available.
Thank you for that, Vikas. And I would just add that not just from the back, from the front sometimes, from the back, and sometimes by the side. Allyship can take all those different forms as well.
Absolutely. And the point being that allyship is not because you want, because it shouldn't be because an ally wants to be associated with a cause for the label that it provides or the preeminence that it provides or the visibility that it creates, but much more in the spirit of servant leadership.
Yeah.
Is perhaps the best way I would think.
Absolutely. Yeah, nails it. Um, Arpan, I know you're a ally for a lot of people, and one I heard about you even before we met on the panel. Um, has there been some kind of a situation or incident in your life that helped you understand and value, uh, the role that allyship can play? Has that shaped your the way you support people? Has that played a role in the way you kind of go about your life and career?
I'm going to take a shot at answering that. And hi, everyone. So I'm pretty usually comfortable on stage, but this time I'm having a massive case of the jitters because being an ally is usually my behind the scenes secret identity. And I feel like I've been dragged out and put on stage. Um, yeah. Anyway, so being an ally, it started pretty early for me because both my parents are principals. And I saw how much easier it was for my dad to be a principal than my mom, how much more work she had to do at home, at school. It brought sensibilities up in me pretty early as to this is an unfair fight. And the only human decent thing I can do is to try and help in whatever way I can. But the true sense of what it means to have privilege didn't sink in until the point where it was stripped away from me. I spent some time outside India and I was in North America. And for the first time, I was not the privileged one. I wasn't this, Indian guy who has doors opening for him and everyone listening to him. That happens in India. That doesn't happen in North America. And when I was in situations there where I was in trouble, I needed help. And that's when I realized what it felt to be marginalized, to be underrepresented, to be powerless. It also made me realize how much I was overstepping in trying to help, how clueless I was to my privilege, and how careful I had to be with that. And yeah, these are the experiences I think that really drove the point home for me.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Arpan. Um, often there is this perception that there are certain groups that get attention and have allies, but there are many others that are invisible and not given the same thing. I mean, not because you don't want to, but because you're unaware of their challenges. So, somewhere the more visible, audible groups tend to get allies. How do you think we can make this more fair?
Yeah.
Shalini.
Hi, everyone. It's interesting to see that there are hardly any men here, and we're talking about allyship. So know that each one of you can be an ally to another woman. So it's not just about men being allies. Let me start with that. But maybe I can give an example. In our company, we have a lot of men and women, but we also have people on ships as seafarers. We have people who work in a warehouse. We have people who work in ports. And I feel like safety for them, both psychological safety and physical safety, is such an important thing. But when I am guilty of starting off an allyship for women because that was the in thing and everybody was trying to do it. And then we had networks that supported women. But when we started thinking about who else needs an ally, it is about people who are different from me and you, different from the majority. And then we started looking at allyship for safety and for people who are doing different work. And that then created, Nimi, to your question, a culture of allyship. This is not a branded event. This is not a one-time initiative, but a culture that looks at, hey, this person maybe needs a little bit more space, to Arpan's point, and how can we allow for it? How can we make space for it? So not thinking about the one important thing, but thinking about any space where there is a minority or people who are different and creating a DNA and a culture of allyship.
That's very interesting because if you started with safety, that's a nice entry point into other aspects as well.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
And safety is such a universal thing that
Exactly.
everybody wants that
Exactly.
allyship
Yeah.
of that.
And it's also psychological safety for somebody like Arpan to come in and say, hey, I don't know what the right words are to support you.
Yeah.
Help me understand and teach me. And that requires psychological safety. And working on safety helps us do that.
Yeah. Super. Vignesh, I'm going to come to you. I'm sure you guessed that.
Sure.
Yeah. Allyship often runs the risk of being seen as something that's, like Vikas mentioned, very visible and performative. And, we like to put it up on our LinkedIn and social media, etc. I'm an ally. I stand for this pride flag, etc. How do you think organizations as well are guilty of this sometimes? How can people and organizations really back up what they're saying, their words, with action?
Good afternoon, everyone. Tough one, but I'll take a stab here. So, see, as Arpan already said, right, like allyship should never be like flagship or someone trying to be in the front and say that, hey, I'm going to fix something. I think I can resonate this with a very simple clip that came in. I don't know how many Top Gun Maverick fans are here, right? When they go, great. So when they go for the final fight, I think Tom Cruise says he says that you got it. He doesn't say I have your back. Okay, that's a huge. I think it's the way we perceive and support people, right? You always have to put the person who needs that additional support or doesn't have that privilege, be it like we can segment it, classify it based on gender. We can from the cultural aspect, from the places we come from. But end of the day, there will be different scenarios where we will need allies in different forms, right? And that's why I think the genuineness with which we do is what really matters, rather than making it like a event or a flagship. And in companies or wherever I participated, again, from the back, like not from the front, but from the backstage, having a clear strategy to not just at the entry point, but also through the execution till the measurement of how that program happened. I think that is super critical, because what do you want to achieve needs to be put in upfront. It just is not about getting people on board or on the platform. It's about taking them through the journey and getting the desired results that we want. We have to continuously check if the desired result is there, right? So that's how usually it works end to end. If you are engaged, do not just sign up for that initial burst, but be there for the entire journey, measure it, give the course correction inputs, and then execute till the end. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Vignesh. And
I mean, Nimi, if I could just build
sure,
on,
sure, of course.
and also just, you know, try and get some words in case I've got to run. So, but I think, three things, if I were to just, build on what Vignesh was saying. The first is intentionality. So I think it's, you've got to be clear. And as I say these things, I think, for the audience, what would be interesting for us to say is, how do you get most out of an ally, right? Because we're here talking and defining allyship from
Yes.
an ally's perspective, but actually what's of interest to the audience is. So I think that intentionality is about, for you, I think for the audience who are looking to work with allies, is establish the intention and assume good intent and ask what the intent is. I think that is important. And the second is consistency. So, you basically said, see the journey through. And so I think if you're looking and working with allies, call it out when you say that, hey, I can see there's energy goes up, energy comes down, but actually what we would much prefer is, instead of peaks and troughs, a much more consistent energy. And the third thing I think, Vignesh, what you alluded to was an action orientation, which is, this is not a passive thing. Being an ally is not, like you said, holding up a flag, right? It is, what am I doing? Where am I showing up? What problems am I solving for you? So if you, if you're looking to work with allies, it's about bringing specific practical problems that need to be resolved to them so that you can work together and they can work with you. And of course, the allies should proactively be doing that as well. But I think that you can also push allies. And all of us having been allies, I think if you kind of work on intentionality, consistency, and action orientation, a lot will get done.
Yeah. I think very, very valid point, Vikas. And actually, my next question sort of flows into the this conversation, because there's often this thing of it's the person in a position of privilege who becomes an ally. I have something that others appreciate, and therefore I can stand up for you. People will hear my voice over yours, right? And there could be this perception that, I'm saving you. I am here to kind of take care of you. It's something that I'm doing for your good. I'm stepping out of my space to do this, etc. Now, how should we deal with this? And can we make it more broad based? Can we have peers and colleagues supporting each other rather than this ally thing being somebody only in a position of privilege? Either, maybe you can take it, because you accused me of uh, giving you
Okay,
questions
now I
that you
think
asked.
I've shot myself in the foot. um, Look, I mean, I think that obviously the use of the word allyship is something that is, maybe new in the parlance of corporate speak. But it's a concept that we've all learned as children, right? And as we've grown up, and we've had allies in situations that have been a variety of people, not just people that necessarily are in positions of privilege or power. And so I think that it's the same idea when we think about allyship in organizations, is the mindset that anyone can be an ally, right? And there's this old adage about, whenever you go to any kind of party or a gathering, you always go with your crew or your tribe, because even just having one person with you makes a big difference. So I think that each one of us can be an ally, and we should see ourselves as allies. And I think in the previous panel, there was a remark about, ask what you can do, because there's a lot that each of us can do. So I think it's a mindset that each of us needs to have, which is that we can all be allies. And of course, there are some people that who happen to have the privilege and more power that can have greater influence, but it doesn't mean that each of us cannot be an ally. That's my
Yeah.
take.
Which then brings me to a question that could be a little embarrassing, but I really would like, for you to share. A lot of people are unsure how to help, right? There is a possibility that I might be overstepping my position or my boundaries in trying to help somebody. Has that ever happened where somebody, or maybe you, were trying to be an ally and it actually, there was a backlash to that? Either a victim or as somebody who is mentored. I can see your.
Maybe, yeah. And I can say something, and the men here can tell me how that should have worked out. But the first time, this whole idea of allyship, and I was the receiver of it, which I didn't know, by the way. I wasn't asking for it, but somebody with the best intent, man, decided that he was going to be my savior in some board meeting, and then decided to say something, Shalini and whatever. And it was 100% what I was thinking. It was definitely not what I would have said, and definitely not how I would have said it. But he's a good friend. We walked out of that meeting, and then I was like, okay, what was that about? He's like, hey, I knew you were nervous, so I wanted to help you. And like, the best help could have been to ask me, hey, Shalini, do you have something to say, instead of saying it on my behalf? So I really think sometimes, and I have done that for many people, because I'm a woman, I'm a leader, I have Radha here, and I can say, hey, I know exactly how Radha is, because I'm also a woman. This is exactly what she wants, and let me do that for her.
Right.
So I kind of feel like all of us walk into that trap of knowing what the other person wants with the best intent. And as allies, as leaders, as anybody here wanting to help, the first thing to do is to create space, and is to say, how would you want me to show up for you? And let them choose, and then we can decide how to do that from there.
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
I-
very nice.
If I may just add on that, right? Like,
Absolutely.
I think the foundation of all these, be it leadership, mentorship, allyship, whatever we want to call, is trust. And unless that trust is built, I don't think we should cross that line and just grab the other side saying, I'm going to help you. It's always better to leave that space for the person who's actually going to ask for help. So if, yes, it's initiated from there, by all means step in. But do not make it a I moment where you say, I'm going to help you. That is where I think the problems start. If you're genuinely against something and you feel someone is not having that comfort, let the person just take that initiative. You will get feelers. You will always get feelers from the other side. Then step in rather than just bulldozing into the situation.
It's, just to follow up to that, you're going to say something, Arpan? Okay. Just to follow up to that, Vignesh, but people who may be feeling vulnerable would hesitate to ask for help. So, in a sense, there is an onus on, people that have privilege, so to say, or position or whatever. And I'm reminded of a story, and I think it'll be nice to share it. This was something that a friend of mine shared very recently. He said he was invited to a meeting, and when he looked at the list of people that were attending the meeting, he was the lowest ranking manager. The rest of them were business unit heads and BU leaders, etc., etc. So he looked at this and he said, "Oh wow, I'm with this group," but he knew where he stood in the hierarchy. So he goes into the conference the next morning, walks in there. Where do you think he was going to sit? At the back. Yeah. So he was making his way to the back of the room when one of the BU leaders said, "Hey, Bala, where are you going? Come and sit here." And he said that was a great moment of allyship. And I was connecting it to what you were saying, Shalini. He said, just by the fact that he called me by my name, asked me to sit next to him, gave me such a huge vote of confidence that I was able to make the points I made. I could have thought these same points sitting at the back of the room. I may not have said it as effectively as I did, knowing that the business unit leader had asked me to sit next to him. And I think allyship comes up in these little behaviors. No one else may have noticed, but he said to me, he said, that was a game changer of a meeting for me. Right? So allyship can show up in those little things
I
where,
think all of us have had that kind of story, right?
yeah.
I mean, as a 22-year-old, first time going abroad, trying to present something, I was like a nerve wreck, okay? Because I had no familiar faces. They all look very different first time, okay? My manager realized it. He comes out and he says, he grabs the head of that entire group, whoever is the decision maker in the client side. We three have a coffee, and he just calms that entire situation because the power center now has an unofficial cord with me, and that was all I needed at the time to just start presenting, right? So these are very small things
Small
that we
things,
can
yeah.
do, and all of us have these
Yeah.
kind of
So it's not
stories.
a big program or campaign, it's really behaviors. Arpan, do you want to add to this?
Um, okay, so I'll kind of, I mean, everyone's been talking about the good experiences. I'll kind of go the other way. For me, I mean, you probably heard of the saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? So good intentions are not enough. And I think educating yourself, being more self-aware, understanding the context of who you're trying to help, understanding their story, having that empathy, having the patience, having the ability to listen, goes a long way towards making your good intentions a good action. And I think sometimes allyship can be simple. It can be just a gesture of kindness. But then I would just call that being human, right? And in general, I'm hesitant to use the word ally because it feels like a big brand. But at the end of the day, if you are trying to be one, then there is work involved. You have to you have to put in the work. You have to understand who you're trying to help.
Um, so it's often hard for people that haven't actually faced inequities. Somebody who's had a very privileged life, been a star at school, and it's hard for them to associate, what it feels like to be excluded. Um, how do you? And many times they also are afraid, to have that courage to show up for somebody, right? Sometimes, am I doing the right thing? And it means I am defying something that society stands for or my organization stands for. It takes a lot of courage to do that, right? How do you build that courage? What is it that makes people become true allies? Because is it a personal experience, or is it, rationally can you get it in your head that I have to be an ally and go out and be an ally? Or does it always spring from a personal experience?
I mean, personal experiences help for sure, but I think it comes down to your personal value system. If your personal value system has fairness in it, and you believe that the world should be fair, if it has kindness in it,
Mm.
then there is no other way. Not being an ally would be wrong.
Okay.
So
Yeah, which is interesting. And, so far we've been talking about allyship as individuals, right? But organizations also need to be allies, and they can do that through policies and programs, etc. From an organizational context, would you like to share what companies could do in the spirit of allyship for underrepresented groups?
I'm in HR, so I can tell you that everything starts with already looking at the culture as well as the policy processes that make the foundation of the company. You can talk about all of these things, you can have initiatives, but if it's not ingrained into everything we do, I don't think it's going to become a part of the culture. One of the things we have experimented with is we have a lot of seafarers. It's a very I don't like using this word, but it's a very male-oriented industry. Is what they say shipping is. I don't believe in it, and we have made it really, really balanced now. But we used to write job ads and advertisements for openings, and it was written from a male perspective. So we decided to get a woman who's on board of a ship to come in and write a job description and an ad from her life and her perspective. She automatically became an ally for all the 25% extra women who applied to the job, and we made that a part of the process. So I really believe that if you take your processes and policies and have an ally with the right mentality come and influence it, I really believe you can progress. And we've also changed the communication. Every time you would say he, in any communication, we've made it they, and things like that. And then every time we have an advertisement like posters here, then we make it in a way that they can see themselves in it, right? You represent the minorities, you represent people who have different thoughts, so that way they can see themselves in it. So I do believe it starts with visually making a difference, and then your policies and everyday communication also changing with it.
I'm very tempted to ask you, since you're working in a very male dominated or male industry, even, seas and ships and things like that. Has there been a moment when you were unsure and, somebody stood up for you and, was an ally to you at that moment?
Yeah, there has, and it has been a man.
Okay.
But it's also been a woman. But one of the things that when I was interviewing Nimi with this company, many people asked me, why are you applying for a male-oriented company? Why not go somewhere where you will be respected? So I said, hey, there is a need for us to go and create a balance. If that's who I can be, then I can be. And I was very proud of what I could do. And I entered the office, and it wasn't that easy. And then I had somebody who was also my coach and mentor who showed up for me and said, here is what good looks like here. Let me show you what are the reins of the game. And then he created space for me to be myself. He didn't try to change me into fitting myself into a male-dominated place, but he actually created space for me to be myself, but the safety that I had because of him. So I've had really good mentors at Maersk. Yeah, it's
Nice.
not a male-oriented company anymore. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Any such instances for either of you? Because
Yeah, I mean, obviously, given where we are, Grace Hopper celebration, when we talk about allyship, what comes to mind is gender, right? So how do genders ally for each other? I spent 15 years working in South Africa um, in management consulting at a top management consultant, and that was a time when race was a very important um sort of bridge that had to be made, and there was a big transition happening, and I think that the opportunities for allyship and the impact of that, especially when you are coming from a culture that has not had many of the people that are coming in. And so simple things like, what are the themes of the holiday party that you're going to have? What's the kind of food you're going to serve at the party? What kind of music is going to be played? What kind of DJ do you get, right? And these are just small signals. And so to a certain extent, Charlie, I totally agree that to scale and to make allyship sustainable policies are important. But I think that the input into policies has got to come from, allies basically saying, we're going to do this differently. We're going to try something new, right? And to some extent, Vignesh, there was a lot of stumbling and I made a lot of mistakes, right? But I said, better to ask forgiveness and be consistent and be action oriented and learn and just keep doing it. And that eventually then led to a shift in what the norm was and what happens around here being sort of different. So just, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Um, I'd like to add a little anecdote. When before I started my company, I used to work as a consultant. And when I'd walk into a company, for me, one of the first markers of whether the company is truly inclusive was what temperature the AC was set at. Um, most corporate offices have temperatures set at, so this is a biological fact, but on average, men tend to run warmer than women. On average, I'm not saying everyone, but on average, men tend to run warmer than women, and ACs are set for the male body's comfort in corporate offices. So one of my little battles has been kind of educating my clients and every company I kind of talk to and work with that your temperature is not inclusive.
Yeah, I think a
And
lot of women can relate to that. Yeah. Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, it's small things, but it matters, right?
And
Yeah.
in most cases, right, it's always about when we follow a template, that's where the challenge starts. I think that's where many a times this conversation I have had with the leaders and HR specifically when we are pulled in, right? Like, I hate to put everyone into a template. Like, this is even look at the job description, right? Like, we just make it into 7 or 8 dials and say that you have to be in this, then only you will be eligible for something like that. And that takes away the entire charm of having a diverse set of people coming in, thriving, right? Because you're not accepting multiple dimensions at all. You're just saying that, hey, A, B, C has to be there, and then things will work out. I think that's where the shift happens. Companies which really acknowledge, or the leaders, let's not say companies. I think it's leaders are, a company is a culmination of leaders, right? When a leader basically says, hey, I'm not going to put a stereotype as my ideal candidate and try to match against it like a computer and say 99% match, let me take it. That's when I think things start changing. You, the more we just do not templatize things, it becomes better for people.
Yeah. And Vignesh, I'm going to ask you this question. Does allyship have to stay only in organizations? Isn't there a huge need in society? Because that is where all the inequities happen, which then comes into organizations, and we have to do allyship in organizations.
No,
Yeah.
I think that's a great question, right? Like, so just a month back, I think we were in a group debating whether AI is biased. Okay. And Shreya, I don't know if she's here. We were all having that great conversation where we were like, is AI biased? And we were trying to say, hey, data should be, synthetic data should come in. We need to eliminate bias. But think about it, right? AI is the purest form of reflecting what is happening in the real world because it's not making up or cooking up data. What we are in our organization is a reflection of what we are in our real lives. That's where the problem starts, right? I'll take a personal example because that makes it easy to understand, right? If my wife, I've seen a lot of things through my wife. She heads Gen AI in Microsoft India, so she's in a pretty senior position. I've seen the challenges, compared my growth with her growth, all those things, right? But leaving aside the corporate angle for the moment, if you today ask my wife that who is your biggest ally, she'll name my mother as her biggest ally because some of the critical decisions in our life, my mom has been her go-to person who reassured that you can go ahead and do it. Simple things. She had to travel. We had a very horrible, like say, pregnancy. It was a high-risk pregnancy, a miracle that both of them survived. 4 months later, she had to represent something in a product conference in the company. We are all confused. I'm giving her the reassurance, I'll take care of the 4-month baby. Nothing worked. My mom walks into the room. My wife is all confused and she says, I'll take care of it. I don't know what happened. That just clicked completely and she was ready packing, right? So you never know. That's the reason you never know who is your ally, right? Like we always tend to think about people in leadership positions put a tag like, hey, a male supporting a female candidature. I don't think we should go down and think on those aspects, right? Like, you have to think about an ally who can stand by you in your times of your need. In my case, I've seen this happen. From there, it was a journey very different. I think after that, her growth has been phenomenal the moment that happened, right? So that's why I think it is way beyond corporate. It is correcting a lot of social stigmas that we have lived with. We have to just eliminate them one by one. And I think then it will start reflecting automatically in the corporate world because we are just a reflection of what we are in our society.
Absolutely. We are all microcosms of society. Anything you would like to add to this?
I actually think sometimes women are women's worst allies, right? And I'll say this out of personal experience that sometimes I'm competing all the time with another woman. But if a man is there, then the relationship is very, very different. And I'm guilty of sometimes not being an ally to another woman. And we've all faced that, we've all been there. So I really believe we shouldn't tag, to your point, a gender or a man has to stand up for a woman.
Yeah.
It's about anybody who has the ability, the opportunity to help somebody else, then find out what help they need and show up for them. And more so now as a woman and as a leader, I'm very, very conscious about, am I consciously doing this for another woman? And now that I can, am I doing it as much as possible? I really believe that women need to stand up.
I think you brought a very sensitive point here because I've often been asked. I'm from the 80s when I started working. It was always like, oh, women they'll have cat fights. They'll never support each other. And there is some science behind it where
Yes.
they say that it's because there are so few women. So they think they're competing with each other.
Exactly.
The minute we have more women and the whole gender balance also plays out there, we become allies because then you're looking at everybody as part of the team and
Yeah.
not really targeting one person as my competitor.
Yeah. And
Right?
women are supposedly more influenced by the scarcity mentality.
Yeah.
You think there's only one chair and another woman cannot get there, so I'm going to get there
Yeah.
faster than her.
Yeah.
But if you believe everybody has their own space, then you automatically become an ally.
That's true. That's true. Would you like to add?
As an ally, I would like to not add and just pass this back to you.
Okay, so we need to be on time because I think we've been delayed and we are doing a good service by being on time. But I do want to leave with the message that allyship is a partnership. It's about showing up for people that we believe we can enable for better success and success in whatever form it is. And if organizations can talk about this a little bit more, they are very, very powerful vehicles of social change. Organizations have tremendous power. You get your people into a room, keep them captive, and talk to them about inclusion and equity and allyship. Their minds are not going to shrink when they go out. They are going to carry that widened horizon into society, which will then change. So what I'm trying to say is that organizations have tremendous power to do that, and I think we should all encourage our organizations to talk more on these subjects. Yeah. So with that, I will close this panel. Thank you very, very much for your participation. Vikas had to leave, so we'll give him your applause. We'll call him up and tell him that you applauded him.
And
Yeah?
go find somebody to be an ally for. Commit to that.
Yeah. Great point.
And it's great to see a huge group of ladies here, right? You're all going to be the future leaders. So just help each other, become alive for each other, like what Shalini said. I think that will make a huge difference as you grow in your careers. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Don't run away. We've got little goodie bags to give to you. So just stay for a second. We'll also take a picture there.